All right, with the breaking news of Buffalo Bills firing head coach Sean McDermott, this has brought up a lot of spark and speculation with interest from Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Berry, and the Cleveland Browns as they continue their head coaching search. And Sean McDermott did not play any games and let it be known, I love Shedeur Sanders. I want Shedeur Sanders.
We can debate, was that a catch? Was that, if you're one of these teams with a young quarterback, you want to talk to McDermott. I think maybe Miami will now all of a sudden have some interest in him. But yes, long story short, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I am definitely reaching out to Sean McDermott and having a conversation with him.
After a loss this past weekend, he is now, just like John Harbaugh shot to the top of the line, to the front of the food train, Sean McDermott is going to do the same thing. He's going to be a highly coveted candidate in this cycle, and there are plenty of jobs to go around, and the Cleveland Browns might be one he lands. And he was adamant and very intrigued.
Like, subscribe, and hit that bell.
The Cleveland Browns are caught off guard right now. Reports say Sean McDermott wants to coach Shedeur Sanders, and that changes the entire conversation. Think about it. Could this be the move that finally changes the Browns' future? McDermott's sudden exit has shaken up the coaching world, and Cleveland can't afford to ignore it. When a coach with his resume becomes available, serious organizations have to take notice. He's known for discipline, strong defenses, and clear structure. More importantly, he knows how to work with quarterbacks when the pressure is high. For a team like the Browns, who have struggled for years to find consistency, this is exactly the type of leader they should be talking to right now. Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry are already deep into their coaching search, and McDermott naturally stands out. He brings respect, experience, and a clear football philosophy. What makes this even more interesting is how much attention is now on young quarterbacks, especially Shedeur. Shedeur isn't just gifted, he's confident, smart, and ready for bigger moments. He sees the field well, stays calm, and doesn't back down when the spotlight is on him. A coach like McDermott, who believes in preparation and accountability, fits perfectly with a quarterback like Shedeur. This isn't about hype. It's about the right match that if Cleveland is truly committed to building around a young quarterback who can grow into a leader, pairing Shedeur Sanders with a coach who knows how to protect and develop him makes complete sense. The Browns shouldn't wait. McDermott will be one of the most in-demand coaches available, and hesitation could cost them. Other teams with young quarterbacks will reach out, and they should. But Cleveland has a real chance to reset the direction of the franchise. Bringing in McDermott and building around Shedeur gives the Browns clarity, strong coaching, real leadership, and a quarterback worth believing in. This isn't a risky move. It's a smart football decision that deserves serious attention right now. Fans are making their voices heard. If McDermott believes in Shedeur, Browns fans want him hired immediately. They want a coach with a proven history, someone who can actually create change. McDermott's track record makes him an ideal choice, especially with a young quarterback like Shedeur who has massive upside. The idea of McDermott working alongside Jim Schwartz excites fans even more, because together they could turn Cleveland into a real playoff threat year after year. It would also send a message to every team that passed on Shedeur that they made a huge mistake. Some fans even believe McDermott could be Shedeur's version of Ben Johnson, the coach who helps him reach his ceiling. The message is clear: bring McDermott in, back Shedeur, and start building a winning future now.
Sean McDermott is going to do the same thing. He's going to be a highly coveted candidate in this cycle, and there are plenty of jobs to go around, and the Cleveland Browns might be one he lands. And he was adamant and very intrigued with Shedeur Sanders. Here in an article, it says Sean McDermott added to the growing praise for Shedeur Sanders. It said, as a veteran head coach with a defensive background, Sean McDermott had a lot to say about this Buffalo Bills facing Myles Garrett and the Browns' tough defense this Sunday at Huntington Bank Field. He also struck a similar tone when asked about Sanders, choosing the word dangerous to describe the 23-year-old's 4+ games this season. Okay, he said he's a good young player, off to a great start, dangerous with the tool set that he brings to the table. He's done a great job. I think their offense is actually ratcheted up since he's been under center, so that'll be a big challenge for us. So Sean McDermott knows the talent of Shedeur Sanders, respects the game, and I think he'd be interested in coaching Shedeur Sanders, man.
Heartbreaking playoff defeats.
He is out. Many just thought once he survived last week, thanks to Josh Allen, getting them past the wild card round in a big matchup against Jacksonville. They lose in heartbreaking fashion, 8-8 in the playoffs, 98-50 in the regular season. One of the longest active tenured head coaches in the NFL. And McDermott is out, and just like that, the coaching carousel almost has to be put on hold around the league, because this obviously instantly becomes the premier head coaching position that would be available.
When you really listen to how Sean McDermott talks about Shedeur Sanders, it says far more than a typical coach, quote, ever could. This isn't empty praise or polite talk before a matchup. McDermott is a defensive-minded coach, the kind who studies quarterbacks to shut them down, and those coaches are usually the toughest critics. So when someone like him talks about how a young quarterback has changed an offense and made it harder to defend, that matters. It shows Shedeur isn't just holding his own, he's impacting the game. He's forcing defenses to adjust, rethink, and prepare differently. That's the sign of a real quarterback, not just a prospect. What stands out most is how Shedeur is described as a challenge, not just another player. The offense improving after he stepped in wasn't random. That happens when a quarterback understands timing, decision-making, and pressure. Shedeur plays with confidence, but he also plays smart, and that balance is rare in young quarterbacks. McDermott clearly recognizes that. He doesn't just respect the talent, he respects the influence. And that kind of respect usually leads to real interest. That's why the Browns should be watching this situation closely. Coaches like McDermott don't become available often. And when they do, teams with quarterback questions need to act fast. He understands defense, structure, and leadership. And he clearly understands Shedeur's game. Matching a coach who sees the value with a quarterback who is already growing is how teams build stability. If McDermott already views Shedeur this highly, why wouldn't Cleveland consider him seriously? Why pass on pairing a proven head coach with a quarterback who is already elevating the offense? If you let that opportunity slip, are you really building for the future? McDermott's time in Buffalo proves he knows how to win consistently. Nearly 10 years, close to 100 wins, multiple playoff appearances, and 5 straight division titles. That doesn't happen by accident. That's discipline, preparation, and leadership. Yes, the playoff losses hurt, especially the close ones, but Buffalo was always competitive. Many teams spend decades trying to reach that level of relevance. McDermott turned a struggling franchise into a regular contender. Now imagine him starting fresh with a young quarterback like Shedeur, someone already calm, confident, and in control early in his career. That combination feels less like a gamble and more like a real chance to build something that lasts.
And now a lot of the coaches that you were looking at potentially, Mike McDaniel's going to try to get an interview with the Buffalo Bills. He's going to try to go coach Josh Allen. When you get to go land a big fish like a Josh Allen, no more of these coaches. Listen, John Harbaugh is probably pissed. John Harbaugh and Kevin Stefanski are probably pissed that they already accepted jobs, because had they known that the Buffalo Bills job will become open and Josh Allen would be available to be coach, every job in this coaching cycle would have went on.
Sean McDermott becoming available changes everything, and the Browns would be foolish to ignore it. This isn't a random coach losing his job after a couple bad seasons. This is a longtime head coach who won year after year, stayed competitive, and kept his team in the playoff race almost every season. The moment he became available, the coaching market froze, because everyone knows opportunities like this don't come around often. For Cleveland, this should hit close to home. The Browns constantly talk about culture, stability, and leadership, yet they continue to choose comfort over bold decisions. Kevin Stefanski has had time, patience, and support, and the results are still inconsistent and stuck in the middle. At some point, excuses stop working. If a proven coach like McDermott is available, you have to honestly ask yourself if what you have is truly enough. This is where Shedeur becomes central to the conversation. The Browns don't need a coach who simply manages games. They need someone who believes in developing quarterbacks. McDermott understands how much a quarterback changes everything, and Shedeur already shows leadership beyond his age. Pairing those two makes football sense. And let's be real about John Harbaugh. Cleveland waited, showed interest, and once again got ignored. He never seriously considered the Browns. That should tell you something. Stop chasing coaches who use Cleveland as leverage and start focusing on someone who might actually commit. If the Browns are serious about their future, about Shedeur, and about finally moving forward, then Sean McDermott shouldn't just be discussed. He should be a top priority right now.
To the Super Bowl, I had been hearing that McDermott was on the hot seat. In fact, a couple weeks ago when the Browns played the Bills, I was on our sister station up in Buffalo, and they asked me about Kevin Stefanski and whether or not he'd be a good fit for the Bills, because they themselves were anticipating that if the Bills did not advance deep enough into the playoffs, McDermott would be fired. But as you said, 8-8 in the playoffs, Anthony, with a franchise quarterback like Josh Allen. You're coming off a game in which you turned it over 5 times. Yes, officiating was suspect on a couple of the key plays. We can debate, was that a catch? Was that... If you're one of these teams with a young quarterback, you want to talk to McDermott. I think maybe Miami will now all of a sudden have some interest in him. But yes, long story short, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I am definitely reaching out to Sean McDermott and having a conversation with him.
For a while, the signs were there that Sean McDermott was under growing pressure, even if no one wanted to admit it. When expectations are high and you have a franchise quarterback, anything short of a deep playoff run feels like failure. Fair or not, that pressure builds. Even with excuses like missed calls or strange moments in big games, the reality is the bar was raised. Still, that doesn't erase what McDermott has proven as a coach. Around the league, teams know his value. They know he prepares, builds tough teams, and understands what winning football looks like over time. That's why the moment he became available, smart organizations started paying attention. For teams with young quarterbacks, this matters even more. A coach like McDermott understands how important the early stages of a quarterback's career are. He's seen what happens when a young passer is overwhelmed, and what happens when they're supported correctly. That's where Shedeur fits perfectly. He plays calm, controlled, and aware. He doesn't panic. He doesn't need chaos. He needs structure, trust, and development. McDermott has proven he can guide quarterbacks through pressure while keeping a locker room united. That kind of leadership can shape a career, and Shedeur looks like the type of player who would thrive under it. That's why the Browns shouldn't hesitate. When someone with McDermott's experience becomes available, you don't sit back. You make the call. Other teams will, but Cleveland has every reason to be aggressive. If they truly want the right coach to grow alongside Shedeur, McDermott checks too many boxes to ignore. This isn't about old playoff losses or past disappointments. It's about fit, belief, and direction. Pairing McDermott with Shedeur could finally give the Browns what they've been searching for: real stability with purpose. In the end, Sean McDermott pushing to coach Shedeur Sanders could be the game-changer Cleveland desperately needs. If they move fast, this partnership could reshape the franchise. Like and subscribe for more updates, and let me know, should the Browns hire McDermott to unlock Shedeur's full potential?